Before we begin, I thought it would be fun if everyone lets me know in the comments where they're watching this video from. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start today's episode. A space tourism company is set to launch commercial flights to the stratosphere by 2024. The idea of traveling to space, once confined to the pages of sci-fi novels and television shows, is now becoming a reality. Worldview Enterprises, a company based in Arizona, aims to revolutionize the industry by making spaceflight more accessible. Instead of using traditional rockets, the company plans to transport passengers into the stratosphere with high-altitude balloons, offering a unique alternative to conventional space travel. These balloons will carry passengers, referred to as Voyagers, to an altitude of 18 miles. While this is significantly lower than the heights reached by competitors, it still offers a remarkable experience. The Kármán line, widely recognized as the boundary of space, begins at 100 kilometers, about 62 miles, above Earth, with some arguing that space starts at 50 miles. Blue Origin's flights exceed this threshold, reaching 106 kilometers. While Worldview's journey does not venture as far, the company remains confident in its rocketless approach, promising an unforgettable, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Clients will be able to witness the Earth's curve for the first time with their own eyes, as well as see the true darkness of space. CEO Ryan Hartman stated, "We're redefining space tourism. Lamentably, the tickets start at $50,000, hardly a cheap venture for those curious about participating in the journeys. The flights are said to be between 6 and 8 hours in length. Some journeys might last several days. The high-altitude balloons are more accurately described as capsules, each capable of accommodating up to 8 passengers. Worldview Enterprises plans to conduct 100 flights per year, offering 5-day journeys over historically and culturally significant landmarks. Some of the planned destinations include the Great Barrier Reef, the Pyramids of Giza, and other global wonders. The company claims these journeys will be smooth and gentle, in contrast to the intense G-forces experienced on rocket-powered flights like those of Blue Origin. According to Worldview, their balloon-based approach allows people of all ages and body types to experience space travel. When asked whether Worldview's venture is simply a luxury experience, CEO Ryan Hartman dismissed the notion, emphasizing its broader significance. He envisions space travel as an accessible opportunity for all, including families, couples, and space enthusiasts. Hartman believes that space tourism represents the future of the travel industry. The first flight has already been fully booked through Space for Humanity, a nonprofit organization that helps fund tickets for those who cannot afford them. This inaugural journey will launch from Arizona, near the Grand Canyon, and the company hopes to expand its list of destinations once it demonstrates the potential of its vision. If you're fascinated by Unsolved Mysteries and enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up to stay updated on all our latest content. Moving on to the next mystery. The absence of impact craters in the region surrounding Pluto's cryovolcanoes, features commonly found on the planet's surface, suggest that these ice volcanoes were active between 100 and 200 million years ago. In cosmic terms, this is relatively recent, leading astronomers to believe that they could potentially erupt again, much like dormant volcanoes on Earth that become active over time. Scientists have long suspected that Pluto once had a subsurface ocean, and the discovery of these cryovolcanoes raises the possibility that liquid water may still exist beneath its icy crust. This, in turn, increases the previously non-existent likelihood of life on Pluto to a very slim possibility. However, as planetary scientist Kelsey Singer notes, survival on Pluto would still pose extreme challenges for any potential organisms. They would require a continuous source of nutrients, and if volcanic activity occurs only sporadically, fluctuations in heat and water availability could make survival even more difficult. Despite these obstacles, the mere possibility of life, however remote, represents a significant shift in our understanding of Pluto and its potential for habitability. Moving on to the next mystery. The disappearance of Tamara Jewel Keepness remains one of Canada's most unsettling mysteries. Born on September 1, 1998, Tamara was a young girl from the White Bear First Nation in Saskatchewan. She had a twin sister, Tanis, along with older siblings, Summer and Rain, and 3 younger siblings. At the time she went missing, Tamara lived with her mother, Lorena Keepness, her stepfather, Dean MacArthur, and her siblings in a home on Ottawa Street in Regina. The neighborhood where she lived had a reputation for high crime rates, grappling with issues such as substance abuse, poverty, and violence. Her home was only a short distance from a halfway house for felons and a Salvation Army shelter that provided refuge for individuals struggling with addiction and homelessness. Tamara's family was well known to Saskatchewan's welfare services. Since the birth of her eldest sibling, Summer, in 1993, authorities had received over 50 reports related to neglect, alcohol abuse, and violence in the household. Due to these ongoing concerns, Tamara and her siblings had spent time living with their father, Troy Keepness, or their maternal grandmother at different points in their lives. In early 2004, just months before Tamara disappeared, she and her siblings returned to live with their mother after their father, Troy, was no longer able to care for them. Around the same time, Dean MacArthur was released from jail after serving time for assaulting Lorena. The night before Tamara vanished on July 5, 2004, the household was in turmoil. Lorena and Dean had an argument, prompting Dean to leave the house and meet up with his friend, Russell Sheepskin. Russell, who sometimes lived with the family and occasionally babysat the children, joined Dean for a trip to a nearby 7-Eleven to buy milk for the baby. After dropping off the milk at the house, the two men headed to a bar. Meanwhile, Lorena remained at home with the children. Around 8:30 p.m., the kids began settling in for the night. Tamara went to bed in the upstairs bedroom she shared with her brothers, Rain and their 4-year-old sibling. At some point during the evening, Lorena decided to leave the house. She put Summer, the eldest child, in charge and went to a friend's townhouse. She later returned briefly to inform Summer that she would be staying at the townhouse longer and left a phone number where she could be reached. She claimed to have called Summer around midnight to check in. The next morning, Tamara was gone. The first indication that something was wrong came at breakfast time. Tamara had not come downstairs. Her grandmother, Lois Shepherd, arrived at the home and soon realized that Tamara was missing. Family members searched the neighborhood, checking with friends, relatives, and nearby playgrounds, but she was nowhere to be found. At 12:16, police were contacted, launching a massive investigation. Tamara's disappearance became national news, sparking an intensive search that spanned the entire province. Authorities received over 2,000 tips, but none led to her whereabouts. Police searched homes, parks, and wooded areas, but Tamara had vanished without a trace. 2 weeks later, on July 19th, Dean MacArthur was arrested and charged with assaulting Russell on the night of Tamara's disappearance. Shortly afterward, on July 21st, welfare services removed Tamara's siblings from Lorena's custody, and they were never returned. Over the years, theories have surfaced regarding Tamara's fate. Some believe Tamara may have wandered out of the house and fallen prey to an unknown perpetrator, while others suspect that someone within the home may have played a role in her disappearance. However, with conflicting accounts of that night and no concrete evidence, no one has ever been charged. The mystery deepened over the years as key individuals connected to the case passed away, including Russell Sheepskin, who died on New Year's Day in 2009. Despite the time that has passed, Tamara's family has never stopped searching for answers. In October 2022, her case was highlighted in 2 episodes of the documentary series Never Seen Again, which delves into the stories of missing persons. The series gave her family a platform to express their pain and renew their plea for information. Lorena, who eventually lost custody of all her children to the child welfare system, continues to hold on to the few photographs of Tamara that remain, as many of her belongings were discarded over the years. Nearly 2 decades after her disappearance, Tamara Keepness is still missing. Her case remains unsolved, leaving her family and community with unanswered questions and an enduring sense of loss. Moving on to the next mystery. The enigmatic Beale ciphers remain one of the most enduring mysteries in American cryptography, captivating treasure hunters and codebreakers for over a century. The legend revolves around 3 encrypted messages, one of which is believed to disclose the location of a hidden treasure valued at millions in gold, silver, and jewels. To this day, Only one of the 3 ciphers has been successfully decoded, while the remaining 2 continue to elude decryption, adding to the intrigue. The story of the Beale ciphers first emerged in an 1885 pamphlet titled The Beale Papers, which recounted an astonishing tale of buried treasure. According to the pamphlet, a man named Thomas J. Beale and his group of fortune seekers stumbled upon a vast trove of wealth while exploring the American West in the early 19th century. Fearing for its safety, Beale decided to conceal the treasure in a secret location in Bedford County, Virginia. To ensure it could one day be recovered, he created 3 encrypted messages detailing its whereabouts. These ciphers allegedly contained information about the exact location of the treasure, the inventory of the hoard, and the identities of the rightful heirs. Before disappearing without a trace, Beale entrusted a locked iron box containing the encrypted messages to a local innkeeper named Robert Morris in 1822. Beale promised Morris that he or someone from his party would return the box, but years passed without any sign of him. After waiting for 23 years, Morris finally opened the box and discovered the mysterious ciphers, but he was unable to decode them. Before his death, he handed the messages over to an anonymous friend who then spent 2 decades attempting to crack the codes. The friend eventually managed to decipher the second cipher by using the Declaration of Independence as a key. This message detailed the vast wealth hidden underground, listing thousands of pounds of gold and silver along with an assortment of jewels. However, the exact location remained unknown as the first and third ciphers, the ones holding the key to the treasure's whereabouts and the names of the rightful claimants, remained undeciphered. Realizing he could not solve the puzzle, the friend decided to share the story with the public and published the Beale Papers in the 1880s. Since then, cryptographers, treasure hunters, and amateur codebreakers have tried their luck at solving the Beale ciphers, but no one has definitively cracked the remaining codes. Some believe the entire Beale cipher story is nothing more than an elaborate hoax, possibly fabricated by the anonymous friend or even the publisher of the Beale Papers to profit from pamphlet sales. Skeptics argue that the writing style of the pamphlet does not align with the time period in which Beale supposedly lived. Furthermore, no historical records confirm Beale's existence or his supposed expedition. Despite these doubts, treasure hunters have spent years scouring Bedford County, digging through caves, forests, and fields in hopes of unearthing the fabled treasure. Some have even employed modern cryptographic techniques and powerful computers to break the remaining ciphers, but to no avail. The mystery endures, continuing to captivate those intrigued by hidden riches and unsolved enigmas. Whether the legend is fact or fiction, the possibility of a buried fortune has fueled the imagination of countless adventurers. Until the first and third ciphers are decrypted, the Beale treasure remains one of history's most tantalizing unsolved mysteries, leaving many to wonder whether a hoard of gold and jewels still lies concealed beneath Virginia's soil. Moving on to the next mystery. Authorities were alerted to his disappearance when concerned family members filed a missing person report on March 30, 2022. Despite extensive efforts to locate him, there have been no confirmed sightings or leads regarding his current location. One of the more puzzling aspects of Orlando Longmire's case is that he left with his prescription medications, suggesting that he may not have intended to be away for long. However, with no additional clues or evidence of his movements after March 22, the circumstances surrounding his vanishing remain unknown. As time passes, his family continues to hold on to hope, seeking answers and urging anyone with information to come forward. Until further developments emerge, the disappearance of Orlando Longmire remains an unsolved mystery, leaving loved ones searching for closure. On the evening of March 30, 2022, Orlando was sighted for the final time at approximately 5 in the vicinity of North 27th Street in Philadelphia. Orlando's whereabouts remain unknown as there have been no sightings or any communication from him recently. There is a notable familiarity attached to his presence in the vicinity of Fox Street and Hunting Park Avenue. The precise whereabouts of Orlando Longmire and the details surrounding his vanishing continue to be a mystery, leaving the investigation into his case unresolved. Moving on to the next mystery. On February 20, 2011, 53-year-old Margaret Mary Kohler mysteriously vanished after planning a short daytime visit to the Cummins Creek wilderness. Initially, investigators believed her disappearance was the result of an inexperienced hiker venturing too far into the national park forest. However, they soon discovered that Margaret was no novice to the area. In fact, she frequently visited the Cummins Creek wilderness to forage for wild mushrooms and truffles. Margaret's friend revealed that she was highly familiar with the region, often making weekly trips with her 5-year-old Labrador Border Collie mix named Roscoe. Born and raised in the coastal city of Walport, Oregon, Margaret was well-versed in outdoor activities and was an avid hiker. Despite her extensive wilderness experience and the precautions she took, Margaret disappeared without a trace. The search began on the same day she went missing, after her friend contacted the local sheriff's department, expressing concern after failing to reach Margaret at their scheduled time. Margaret had always been cautious about hiking alone, aware that without proper precautions, she could end up injured or stranded in the vast national park without anyone knowing her whereabouts. It was for this very reason that Margaret told her friend prior to her trip that she was planning on taking Roscoe for a walk near the Cape Perpetua area. Although the last time Margaret had been seen was on the February 19th, after getting an expected time frame of Margaret's itinerary from her friend, detectives were able to put an accurate time to when Margaret Kohler had arrived in the area, believed to have been during the early morning. Within only 8 hours of her disappearance, the Lane and Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, alongside the United States Forest Service and the Oregon State Police, would begin their search and rescue efforts for Margaret and Roscoe. Oddly enough, after scouring several parking lots and common stops, the search and rescue teams were unable to locate Margaret Kohler's vehicle. Given the fact that the investigators were unsure which trail Margaret Kohler had followed, it made it increasingly difficult for search and rescue teams to efficiently check a tighter radius, forcing them to expand their search to a much larger area. Local volunteer groups had spent the better part of the first 2 days walking up and down the Cape Perpetua area, but were unable to find any tracks or signs of Margaret Kohler having visited anywhere in the region. With the lack of any sign of Margaret's vehicle or equipment anywhere near the region, investigators started to wonder whether or not the missing hiker was even within the park. For this reason, in conjunction with the search and rescue efforts, the local sheriff's department would keep out a missing persons file for any information relating to Margaret's disappearance, worried that she could have been the victim of foul play or could have gotten into a car accident in an isolated area. It would be due to these suspicions that the search and rescue efforts were temporarily reduced over the course of about 2 weeks. It would not be until the March 3rd that proof of Margaret having arrived in the park was found. According to the United States Forest Service, one of the Forest Service law enforcement officers had found Margaret's van on the side of Forest Service Road in the Cummins Ridge Trail area. The Cummins Ridge Road was a far deeper major pathway that was only accessible after driving south through an area known as Neptune State Scenic Viewpoint, past a coastal area named the Devil's Churn due to its history of supernatural sightings. Inexperienced hikers would not have been able to see that the small trail opens up into a much larger pathway, and so investigators were certain that Margaret must have visited the area several times in the past to know exactly how much room there would be for her vehicle. The vehicle itself was completely unoccupied, and after having been searched, a park receipt would be located that would confirm that Margaret Kohler had reached the park sometime on the February 20th. After Margaret Kohler's vehicle was discovered by a United States Forest Service law enforcement officer, a massive search was immediately launched within a 10-mile radius of the area. Despite the involvement of over 50 volunteers, no sign of Margaret or her dog, Roscoe, was found. The next day, bloodhounds were brought in to help track a scent from the vehicle, but due to the significant time gap between Margaret's disappearance and the discovery of the vehicle, the experienced canine teams were unable to locate a traceable scent. On March 5th, nearly 2 weeks after Margaret's disappearance, a breakthrough occurred. Search and rescue volunteers found Roscoe, the dog, casually walking along the area of 10 Mile Creek, about 2.2 miles south of the abandoned vehicle. Surprisingly, Roscoe appeared to be in perfect health, despite being missing for over 2 weeks. Deputies with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office tried to get Roscoe to lead them to Margaret's location, but the dog seemed too playful and distracted, making it impossible for the rescuers to track down Margaret. To this day, no trace of Margaret Kohler has been found. What's even more peculiar is that similar incidents have been reported in other cases of missing persons, particularly in strange disappearances where hikers were accompanied by their dogs. In these cases, the dogs often appear several days after the disappearance, seemingly in perfect condition, regardless of the harsh weather conditions or the length of time spent missing. This strange pattern has become a hallmark of many mysterious missing person cases, leaving investigators and the public with more questions than answers. Moving on to the next mystery. The idea of Nikola Tesla creating a death ray has long been a source of speculation and intrigue. Tesla, whose groundbreaking work in electricity and magnetism made him a household name, reportedly had ambitions to develop a weapon that could defend nations from air attacks. According to the released FBI document, dated January 21, 1943, Tesla did indeed work on this concept, which was described as a death ray. The invention was believed to have been designed to safeguard countries from aerial threats by emitting a powerful beam capable of destroying aircraft from a distance. Tesla's death came on January 7, 1943, and shortly after, there were concerns that his inventions, including the so-called death ray, might fall into the wrong hands. On June 9, 1945, Ralph Bergstresser, a New York City resident, informed authorities about a potential attempt to acquire Tesla's research. According to Bergstresser, individuals sympathetic to Russia were believed to be seeking Tesla's papers and any models or designs that could have military applications. Bergstresser suggested that Abraham Spani, president of the National Latex Corporation of Dover, Delaware, was behind these efforts to obtain the inventor's sensitive materials. These papers were reportedly stored at a Manhattan warehouse, though the exact contents of the documents and the full extent of Tesla's work on the death ray remain shrouded in mystery. This revelation, combined with Tesla's already mysterious reputation, only adds to the intrigue surrounding his life and legacy. His work, both practical and visionary, has inspired countless theories and conspiracies over the years, but the full scope of his inventions, especially those with potential military applications, remains unknown. While the details of the death ray are still uncertain, the FBI document gives an eerie glimpse into the secretive world of Tesla's final years and the potential military uses of his ideas. Bergstresser promised to return to the New York Field Division shortly after his initial visit and furnished further and more specific information to support his claims. He was not heard from again until September 27, 1945, at which time he furnished the following additional information. He said that a boyhood chum of his from Wichita, Kansas, Blois Fitzgerald, had been Tesla's protege and one of the inventor's few confidants. According to Bergstresser, Fitzgerald, who is now an Army private stationed at Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, is a brilliant 29-year-old scientist who spent endless hours with Tesla prior to the latter's passing, during which time Tesla explained to him secret experiments. Bergstresser stated that Fitzgerald met Tesla in November 1942, but he has been corresponding with the latter since 1935. According to the informant, Fitzgerald had developed some sort of anti-tank gun, the details of which he presented to Tesla, who made certain corrections in design and specifications to further perfect the weapon. Bergstresser related that sometime in December 1942, when Fitzgerald was attending a meeting of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, he made the acquaintance of Abraham Spannell, who became interested in Fitzgerald's gun. Spannell offered financial aid to Fitzgerald, and the two were in the closest contact with each other for a considerable period of time. Bergstresser said that Fitzgerald had lined up a deal for the purchase of the gun, but for some reason, Spannell blocked this deal by reaching top men in the company. The story surrounding Nikola Tesla's death ray has continued to captivate the public, particularly because of its potential military applications and the intrigue surrounding Tesla's personal life and inventions. According to the information presented in the FBI document, after Tesla's death in 1943, an individual named Spannell is said to have secured a job for Fitzgerald at the Higgins Shipbuilding Company in New Orleans, where Fitzgerald worked on perfecting Tesla's death ray. Spannell also reportedly negotiated a contract with Fitzgerald to manufacture the weapon, ensuring that a portion of the profits would go to him. Bergstresser, the source of the information, mentioned that Fitzgerald considered Tesla's death ray to be the only viable defense against the atomic bomb, which was a serious concern during the early years of the Cold War. Tesla had allegedly shared his plans for the death ray, or teleforce, with the New York Times in 1940. Tesla described the weapon as capable of melting airplane engines from a distance of 250 miles, thereby creating an invisible defensive barrier around a country. This would have given the United States an immense technological advantage, protecting it from aerial attacks, including the threat posed by atomic bombs. Bergstresser's account also claimed that Spinell, who was allegedly pro-Russian, was attempting to use legal means to acquire Tesla's effects, which were still in the possession of Tesla's heirs. These heirs included Sava Kasanovic, who was working in a governmental position in Yugoslavia. This attempt to acquire Tesla's materials added to the growing mystery surrounding the inventor's most secretive work. While Tesla was often viewed as eccentric during his lifetime, many of his ideas have since been recognized as groundbreaking. His work in electricity, wireless communication, and energy has had a profound impact on modern technology, although some of his more unconventional pursuits, such as anti-gravity and his theories about the ether, remain subjects of debate and fascination. The legacy of Tesla's genius is undeniable, yet many of his most ambitious and mysterious projects, including the death ray, remain shrouded in secrecy and unanswered questions. Whether or not Tesla truly created such a weapon, or if these claims were part of a larger mythos surrounding his eccentric genius, remains unclear. However, it is certain that his contributions to science and technology have left a lasting legacy, even as the world continues to uncover new details about his life and work. It is through his extraordinary intellect that the world has witnessed groundbreaking inventions like electricity, radar, microwaves, radio, drones, and countless other remarkable advancements. Undoubtedly, Tesla epitomizes a man whose genius was destined for a different era. Tesla embraced an ancient mystical concept called the ether, which he discussed extensively and believed he could harness its powers to shape a future filled with extraordinary devices, transforming humanity's capabilities. This led to a well-known quote attributed to Nikola Tesla, wherein he envisioned a world where wireless communication would turn the entire Earth into a vast interconnected network, allowing instantaneous communication and vivid visual and auditory experiences between people no matter the distance. Furthermore, he envisioned handheld devices that could enable these remarkable interactions. Nikola Tesla's oscillating machine is one of the most captivating elements in his legacy, particularly because of the claims that it could create small earthquakes or induce destructive vibrations in structures. Tesla himself described a series of experiments in which he attached a small version of the oscillating device to the steel framework of a building under construction. According to Tesla, when the oscillator was activated, the vibrations began to cause the building to tremble, eventually resulting in the collapse of the structure. The event was so intense that it prompted a police investigation, with Tesla reportedly retrieving his device and leaving quickly to avoid further scrutiny. Although this story has been met with skepticism by some, especially given Tesla's flair for dramatic demonstrations, there is a scientific basis for his claims. The concept of resonance frequency, which is well understood today, supports the idea that objects can be made to vibrate destructively when exposed to certain frequencies. This phenomenon is often likened to the way a violin string can shatter a wine glass if the right pitch is hit. Tesla's oscillator may have been capable of generating vibrations at specific frequencies that resonated with the natural frequency of the building, causing it to collapse in a manner similar to how structural failure occurs during earthquakes. Interestingly, the oscillating machine also highlighted Tesla's deep understanding of mechanical and electrical resonance, a principle that is used in modern technologies such as radio and music. However, Tesla's device appears to have had an unintended and potentially dangerous consequence: the ability to destabilize structures by matching their natural resonance frequency. Whether or not the events of 1912 were fully accurate or exaggerated, the story of Tesla's oscillating machine continues to spark curiosity and raise questions about what other inventions he may have been working on, especially those that have yet to be discovered or fully understood. Despite the lack of surviving evidence of such a device, Tesla's work on resonance and oscillations has inspired further research into vibration-based technologies. Today, resonance is a critical factor in engineering, particularly in the design of buildings, bridges, and other structures to ensure they can withstand vibrations, including those caused by earthquakes. Tesla's experiments, even if not fully realized in his time, contributed to the understanding of this phenomenon, which has been crucial in the development of modern engineering techniques. Moving on to the next mystery. The disappearance of Melissa Lemoyne. Melissa Lemoyne, a 39-year-old woman, went missing in Tampa, Florida on July 14, 2023. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are quite concerning, as she vanished soon after being dropped off at the Frontier Travel Park to meet an individual she had connected with online. During the period when Melissa went missing, she resided in Lutz, Florida, a town situated approximately 15 miles away from Tampa. Lutz, a peaceful community with its distinct charm, provided a serene backdrop. In the scorching afternoon of July 14, 2023, a close relative transported Melissa to the sprawling and bustling Frontier Travel Park, situated conveniently on Nebraska Avenue in the vibrant city of Tampa, Florida. Melissa Lemoyne had arranged to meet someone she had been conversing with on Facebook, hoping to connect in person. After leaving her last known location, she failed to reach her destination and has not been heard from since. Her family, alarmed by her sudden disappearance, reported her as missing to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, urging authorities to help locate her. Despite the ongoing investigation and efforts to find her, the whereabouts of Melissa Lemoyne remain unknown. The details of her disappearance are unclear, and the case continues to perplex authorities and loved ones, leaving many unanswered questions. Moving on to the next mystery. Eileen Cotter was born in 1952, 3 years after her parents emigrated from Ireland to England. Her father, Patrick Cotter, worked as a laborer. In 1967, at just 15 years old, Eileen experienced a devastating tragedy when she discovered her mother's body after her mother took her own life. The following year, at 16, she left school and began working at a holiday camp on Barry Island in Wales. Over time, she found employment at an Irish care facility. On the afternoon of June 1, 1974, around 2 p.m., a resident of an apartment complex in Hamilton Park, Highbury, North London, noticed what appeared to be a bundle of rags near a row of garages. Upon closer inspection, another resident realized it was a human body and instructed her father to contact the police. Authorities arrived at the scene and confirmed that the woman was deceased. The victim was later identified as Eileen Cotter, who was 22 years old at the time of her death. Eileen was found strangled, with one eye blackened and visible bruises on her face and neck. She was lying face down, her lower body exposed, with her underwear and tights pulled down. Her handbag, glasses, and shoes were missing. Following the discovery of her body, Eileen Cotter's father released a statement reflecting on his daughter's short life, which had been marked by family tragedies. A forensic examination was conducted to determine the circumstances of her death. The pathologist concluded that Eileen had been manually strangled. Investigators recovered DNA samples from 2 locations on her body and attempted to extract DNA profiles. However, at the time, there were no matches in the database. Police conducted an extensive investigation, interviewing 92 potential suspects and monitoring local curb crawlers in an effort to identify her killer. Despite their efforts, the perpetrator was never found, and Eileen's case remained unsolved. In 2012, 37 years after Eileen's body was found, the investigation was reopened following advances in DNA profiling. The trail went cold for 7 more years until 2019, when John Applegren came to the attention of police for attacking his wife, and Smythe Applegren. He lived in the same area as Eileen when the crime was committed. John Applegren is an 80-year-old pensioner who was formerly a minicab driver and a bricklayer. He is from South Africa and had previously been married in South Africa to a woman with whom he had 2 children. It is not clear if Smythe Applegren is his second or third wife, as there are no details of a second wife, although many sources call and his third wife. It was in February 2019 that he was arrested for domestic assault by his then-wife, Applegren. There was a breakthrough when police took Applegren's DNA for the first time. The sample was a 1 billion to 1 probability of a match to the DNA collected from Eileen Cotter's body. When interviewed, he claimed that he did not know Eileen, but accepted he had relations with other women during his marriage. On June 22, 2022, John Applegren was arrested and charged with the slaying of Eileen Cotter. The arrest was made after investigators concluded that Applegren is 100% responsible for what happened to Eileen. Detective Chief Inspector Lawrence Smith said that if someone knocked on his door and arrested him for a crime of almost 50 years ago, he would repeatedly plead his innocence until he could no longer speak. That was not him. He was very calm about it. He had an aura of, dare I say, evilness about him. Applegren appeared at the Bromley Magistrates Court on Thursday, June 23, 2022, where he was remanded into custody. The judge fixed a trial of up to 4 weeks from June 6, 2023. Opening the prosecution's case, prosecutor Alexandra Healy said that DNA samples taken from Eileen's body in 1975 matched those of John Applegren of Brighton Close in Sydenham, southeast London. During the trial, she told jurors that in 2019, Applegren had come to the attention of police for attacking his wife. The court heard Applegren was seen on the night of the slaying in 1975 at a Finsbury Park hot dog stall, where Eileen would often go. Miss Healy also told the jury that it appeared Eileen had been pushed out of a car after she and Applegren had intercourse. She described to the court, her body was discovered in the position it fell without shoes and with her tights and underwear still around her right leg. Applegren hit Eileen in the face and throttled her before throwing her body out of his car. The defendant was 31 at the time. This incident occurred just 6 weeks after the birth of his first child with his then-wife, Anne. When questioned by police in 1975 as a potential suspect, Applegren claimed he was living in Leighton and had never been to the Finsbury Park and Highbury area, a statement that was later proven false. During the trial, Miss Healy stated that Eileen did not have the defendant's DNA on her underwear and tights because she never pulled them back up after being with him. She never had the chance because she was no longer alive. The court proceedings also revealed that Eileen and were far from Applegren's only victims. On October 14, 1972, during his own wedding reception, he assaulted an 18-year-old female guest. Miss Healy informed jurors that the assault only came to light years later, when police reinvestigated Eileen's case in 2012 and interviewed an Applegren. The victim, who had remained silent out of fear of being blamed, later confided in and after her divorce from Applegren. She revealed that after leaving the restroom at the reception, Applegren had cornered her against a wall and assaulted her. And Applegren, mother of 2, also revealed that she had been mistreated and that Applegren had once grabbed her neck with both hands. She added that she believed he was cheating on her just months after their 1972 marriage and later found out he was sleeping with her brother's wife. After 11 hours of jury deliberation, Mrs. Justice May announced the jury's final decision. She told Applegren that putting your hands around a young woman's neck and squeezing hard carried a high risk, which ought to have been obvious. The judge added, Eileen must have been terrified. The jury found Applegren guilty on Friday, June 16, 2023, following a 2-week trial. In addition to being found guilty of manslaughter, he was also convicted of indecent assault. Justice May then sentenced Applegren to 10 years for manslaughter and a further 6 months for the earlier assault to run consecutively. This means he will be eligible for release on parole after 5 years, 3 months on June 21, 2028, when he is 85 and hopefully worm food. In mitigation, Justin Rouse listed Applegren's health problems, saying the defendant would be affected significantly by serving his sentence. Detective Chief Inspector Lawrence Smith reflected on the tragedy, stating, Eileen's life was cruelly cut short at a young age, and her body was callously discarded on the street. When my team reviewed the original investigation, we were impressed by how thorough it was. Investigators at the time utilized every possible method to identify the suspect, including operations with decoy women. This tactic involved undercover female officers, protected by colleagues, being placed at crime scenes in an effort to lure out predatory men. However, Smith acknowledged the limitations of forensic science at the time, saying, unfortunately, they did not have the scientific advancements available to us today. He went on to emphasize the importance of justice, stating, while he should have been imprisoned decades ago, he has now been held accountable. Investigating violence against women and girls remains a top priority for the Metropolitan Police, and we will relentlessly pursue predatory men, whether their crimes occurred years ago or in the present day. Eileen's half-brother, Patrick Cotter, who was only 5 years old when she was murdered, shared a deeply personal statement. Eileen and I shared the same father. My mother raised her as her own after Eileen's mother passed away. Not only was I robbed of the chance to truly know my sister, but the ripple effect of her murder also cost me my mother, who took her own life, and my father, who succumbed to mental illness and alcoholism. This was all brought about because John Applegren took Eileen's life. 3 years after Eileen's strangling, my mother took her own life as the relationship between her and my father broke down significantly. Due to the fighting between them, I was placed in a care home where I suffered abuse until the age of about 11. It was never explained to me why I was placed in care, and I lived most of my childhood believing it is because of something I had done wrong. His statement continues. Again, being a young child, I struggled to understand with little explanation given to me. My father drank heavily, but Eileen's demise and the loss of my mother caused him to drink even more, and he was eventually admitted to Springfield Psychiatric Hospital. Following this, my father went to live with his brother in Ireland. However, his drinking became too much, and he also passed away. According to Patrick Cotter Jr., he has no memory of Eileen's funeral and has no idea whether she was buried or cremated. He also has no idea where she was laid to rest. As a result, he had never been able to visit her grave. Patrick continued, I spent a very unhappy childhood moving amongst various care homes and foster homes. However, when I was 14 years old, I was placed with my foster parents, John and Yvonne. I was very fortunate to be placed in a loving, caring home. Patrick Cotter reflected on the impact of his family's tragic past, stating, they helped me understand parts of my life that I never knew or fully comprehended, filling in the gaps, so to speak. He also revealed that he had a half-brother from his mother's side, who was 17 years older than him. However, after Patrick was placed into care, his half-brother was instructed to avoid any contact with him. I felt as though I lost him too, he shared. He was someone I cared for deeply and had fond memories of, but even that was taken from me. In his concluding remarks, Patrick expressed his hope for justice to finally be served for Eileen, whose life was stolen nearly 5 decades ago. He also spoke about the lasting effects of his childhood trauma, saying, because of the horrific experiences I endured as a child, I became emotionally numb. It has made it difficult for me to form deep and meaningful relationships. Though his memories of Eileen have faded with time, he added, I believe she loved me. Moving on to the next mystery. While fishing in the Westfield River in West Springfield on May 30th, 1966, a father and his child noticed something unusual beneath the water's surface, far larger than an ordinary fish. Out of curiosity, they cast their fishing net to investigate. To their horror, they pulled up a lifeless body. The victim was identified as 10-year-old Betty Lou Zukowski, who had been missing for several days. The fishermen immediately alerted the authorities, and police rushed to the scene to begin their investigation. At the time, Mildred and Stanley Zukowski had already reported their daughter missing to the Chicopee Police Department. When officers contacted them to confirm the identity of the body, the couple clung to the hope that it wasn't their little girl. No parent wants to face the unimaginable pain of losing a child. Sadly, their worst fears became reality when they arrived at the scene and confirmed that the deceased was indeed their daughter, Betty Lou Zukowski. 10-year-old Betty Lou Zukowski, a Catholic schoolgirl, left her family's home at 293 Front Street in Chicopee, Massachusetts, around 6 p.m. on Thursday, May 26, 1966, approximately 57 years ago. She had received a phone call from someone she claimed was a friend and was heading out to meet her for an ice cream cone. Since Betty Lou often went out, her parents didn't think twice about letting her go. Little did they know it would be the last time they would see their daughter alive. Dressed in blue jeans, a jacket, white sneakers, and a green checkered shirt, Betty Lou also carried $2 with her. When she failed to return home, Her parents, Stanley and Mildred Zukowski, reported her missing to the Chicopee Police Department around 11:15 p.m. that night. However, for reasons unclear, they requested that authorities delay making her disappearance public for several hours. Some sources suggest this may have been because they were used to their daughter being away from home for extended periods. But in their haste to locate her, the Chicopee Police Department promptly sent out an all-state alarm. It was eventually revealed to them that Betty Lou's girlfriend was a figment of her imagination. After 3 days of fruitless searching, Betty Lou's damaged and mud-covered body was tragically discovered 4 days later, on May 30th, 1966, a Memorial Day, off the coast of West Springfield by 2 young men fishing in the Westfield River. Her cause of death was identified as several blunt force injuries to the head, a fractured skull, and terminal drowning, based on post-mortem evidence. When Betty Lou entered the Westfield River, she was still alive and had not experienced any sexual assault. She was beaten, according to the authorities, within 15 minutes of her drowning. Following the discovery of Betty Lou's remains, the West Springfield Police Department and the Chicopee Police Department collaborated on a combined homicide investigation. At first, the entire detective bureau of each of these police departments was assigned to the case. There was also involvement from the Massachusetts State Police and the Hampton County District Attorney's Office. There was a comprehensive search along the shore where Betty Lou's body was discovered, looking for clues. Divers also combed the river for any useful information that might identify the offender. Not even the murder weapon was discovered. After that, the detectives spoke with Betty Lou's relatives, acquaintances, and fellow students to find out who she might have run across at the time of her abduction and subsequent murder. Her pals in Chicopee had informed the police that she enjoyed exploring the caverns carved out of the riverbank behind the Chicopee Electric Light Company. However, despite searching all the locations she enjoyed visiting, the police were unable to locate her killer. Betty Lou was described as a loose girl by the police and media at the time of her death. She was brilliant, friendly, witty, adventurous, vivacious, and sassy, according to her pals. They said that at the age of 10, she had colored her dark brown hair blonde. She frequently wore cross-shaped earrings, got her ears pierced, and applied makeup. Her close acquaintances claimed that she was occasionally spotted hanging out in their automobiles, mostly with teenage lads. Some argued that, at 10 years old, Betty Lou was undoubtedly eager to grow up and that, because of her free spirit, she may have trusted an older person who would later take advantage of her and murder her. Investigators were informed by Betty Lou's pal that she had previously claimed to be seeing a boy by the name of Ralph. Ralph back in 1966, based on her friend's account. He was a Caucasian man in his 17th or 18th year of life, with medium complexion, brown eyes, and black hair. He frequently wore glasses with black frames. He was reported to weigh between 125 pounds and 135 pounds, and to be 5 feet 5. The suspect was believed to have driven either a dark green Chevrolet sedan or a Chevrolet with a white or light blue top and a dark blue bottom. However, police later discovered that no individual by the name of Ralph existed. This led them to suspect that either Ralph had given Betty Lou a false name or that she had misrepresented his identity. Given that Betty Lou willingly left her home after receiving the phone call that night, authorities concluded that she likely knew her killer. Investigators believed she got into a car driven by someone familiar to her, met up with this person, and was ultimately taken to West Springfield. Despite efforts to uncover the truth, no significant leads emerged in the days following the discovery of her body. On June 2, 1966, what would have been her 11th birthday, Betty Lou Zukowski was laid to rest. A funeral mass was held in her honor at Holy Name Church in Chicopee. Several of her 5th-grade classmates from Valentine School served as pallbearers, and her entire class, along with her teacher, attended the service to say their final goodbyes. Deeply loved and full of spirit was Betty Lou. Detectives used the accounts of 2 witnesses to create a sketch of the suspect 1 week after Betty Lou's remains were discovered. The final person to see Betty Lou alive, only hours before her death on May 26, 1966, was one of these witnesses. But this drawing resembled Ralph's description. The sketch was heavily covered in local publications at the time. It was later made available to the public. It provided various leads for the detectives, but none of them helped them identify the murderer. After all leads were exhausted, the case was put on hold for years. However, Betty Lou's homicide case was revived in 2019 following the establishment of the Unresolved Crimes Unit of the Hampton District Attorney's Office. Subsequently, authorities learned that in November of 1997, Donald Mars was considered a suspect when West Springfield Police Department investigators obtained information connecting him to Betty Lou's slaying from a number of sources. But since there wasn't enough proof to link him to the crime, he was never taken into custody. 25 years later, in 2022, Betty Lou's case attracted a lot of attention, and Donald Mars was charged with first-degree murder on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, in connection with Betty Lou Zukowski's death. On November 2nd, 2022, Donald Mars was brought into jail after a warrant for his arrest was issued. Although the evidence connecting him to the murder has not yet been made public, Hampton District Attorney Anthony Guglielmi did note during the news conference that important remarks made contributed to Donald Mars's arrest. It's either that someone saw something and came clean, or Donald Mars most likely involved himself in the questioning. Donald Mars was descended from a prominent Chicopee family. With 5 sons, Mars Heating and Service was owned by his father, Roger Mars. Roger Mars, a Korean War veteran, had at least 2 sons who served in the military. One of them was likely Donald Mars, who was living at a Veterans Administration facility in Bedford at the time of his arrest. Throughout his life, Donald Mars had a history of criminal activity. According to the State Sex Offender Registry Board, he was convicted in 1995 of 2 counts of aggravated child rape and 3 counts of indecent assault and battery on a minor under 14. He was classified as a Level 3 sex offender, indicating a high likelihood of reoffending. In May 1995, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. After his release in June 1997, he was placed on probation, but when he violated its terms, he was sentenced to an additional 5 to 7 years at Cedar Junction. Following his convictions, Mars was deemed sexually dangerous and was civilly committed to the Bridgewater Treatment Center in Massachusetts from 1994 to 2015. Eventually, he was transferred to a Veterans Administration hospital in Bedford, where he resided before his arrest. At the time of Betty Lou Zukowski's murder, Donald Mars was 17 years old. A sketch created by Betty Lou's friends, based on her description of Ralph, bore a strong resemblance to Donald's high school yearbook photo. Additionally, he was familiar with the area where Betty Lou's body was discovered, further linking him to the crime. His family used to spend time at his grandparents' home on 102 Woodmont Street in West Springfield, according to an archive of newspapers. On Christmas, Thanksgiving, and other occasions, they spent time at their house. The murder scene at the end of Dewey Street is 4 minutes' drive from this address. The 73-year-old Donald Mars was charged with first-degree murder for the death of Betty Lou and was placed under indictment by Hampton Superior Court. When asked to make his plea in a Zoom-conducted court, Donald Mars pled not guilty, appearing as though he would cry. He was urged to be detained without the ability to post bail after his criminal past was detailed. Donald Mars seemed to take exception at this and expressed disdain. The pretrial meeting for this case was postponed until May 1, 2023. Regretfully, Betty Lou's parents passed away in the 1980s. It was reported that Mildred Zukowski, who passed away at the age of 61, fell out of the window of her chamber. Some reports suggest that Betty Lou Zukowski's mother took her own life, unable to cope with the unbearable loss of her only child. Just a year later, Stanley Zukowski also passed away at the age of 64 from unspecified causes. With no known surviving siblings, the Zukowski family's tragic story came to an end. After the long-awaited arrest of Donald Mars, Hampton District Attorney Anthony Guglielmi addressed the significance of solving cold cases. He acknowledged that many unsolved murders have remained open for decades without justice being served. However, he emphasized that advancements in investigative methods are now offering hope to the families of victims. With integrity and persistence, more cases are being solved, bringing long-overdue closure and allowing victims to finally rest in peace. Moving on to the next mystery. Gabriel Nagy, a devoted father and a well-respected family man, lived a fulfilling life in Sydney, Australia, alongside his wife, Pamela, and their children, Stephen and Jennifer. Having immigrated to Australia as a young boy, He maintained a deep connection with his loved ones and his community. As a shop fitter, Gabriel played a crucial role in helping businesses design and construct retail spaces throughout the city. Despite his seemingly stable and content life, an unseen force began to unravel his family's happiness, leading to an unexpected and devastating turn of events. With aspirations of becoming an accountant, Gabriel was actively pursuing courses to achieve his goal. On January 21st, 1987, he ventured into the city to complete some errands and called Pamela to inform her that he would be home for lunch. In anticipation of his return, Pamela prepared a meal and waited. However, Gabriel never arrived. Hours passed, and as her concern grew, she received a phone call that would change her life forever. Surely, someone had to know what happened to Gabriel after the car accident. Unfortunately, no one knew. 2 weeks after Gabriel disappeared, the police determined that he withdrew money from a bank in the city of Newcastle. Newcastle is about 100 miles away from Sydney. His family was hopeful about the new lead and believed this would help them find Gabriel. The lead turned into a dead end, however, and the case went cold for 2 more decades. There was a senior constable by the name of Georgia Robinson. She promised herself that she would solve this case. In her last attempt at finding Gabriel, she did just that in 2012. She looked through some files when she came across something interesting. The Medicare system in Australia showed documents that a person named Gabriel Nagy recently underwent eye surgery. The records also showed that the man went by another name, Ron Saunders. Constable Robinson called this man. He told her that the last 2 decades of his life was fuzzy to say the least. He spent most of his time homeless, just wandering from city to city. That was until a pastor by the name of Barry Hayo came across Gabriel. The pastor gave Gabriel a job at the church as a caretaker. Gabriel got the name Ron Saunders from a sign for the Queensland Saunders Beach while he was wandering around. His memories slowly came back, so when he got the eye surgery, he gave the name of Gabriel Nagy as well. Robinson flew to where Gabriel was currently living and showed him pictures of his family. As time passed, more fragments of Gabriel's memory began to return. It was revealed that the car accident he had been in had left him with a severe head injury, triggering a fugue state that caused him to forget everything about his past life. Gabriel described the experience as surreal, admitting that while pieces of his memory resurfaced, he still couldn't fully recall his family. Despite this, he promised to stay in touch, though he struggled with the idea of moving back in with them. The emotional weight of reconnecting with his loved ones was overwhelming. A photograph captured the moment Pamela and their daughter, Jennifer, showed him a family photo album, hoping to jog his memory. Another powerful image from 2012 shows the poignant reunion between Gabriel and Jennifer, the first time they had seen each other in years. Moving on to the next mystery. In 2003, a waste management worker in Stickney, Illinois, made a chilling discovery. The remains of 2 infants were found in the front lift pocket of a garbage truck. Investigators determined that the babies had died from hypoxia and had been discarded in a trash can in a Stickney alley. Despite some progress in the investigation, authorities were unable to identify who was responsible for abandoning them. The case eventually went cold. However, in 2018, investigators decided to use DNA technology to trace potential relatives of the infants. This breakthrough led them to Antoinette Briley, a 41-year-old woman from Michigan. After conducting DNA tests, authorities confirmed she was the mother. In December 2020, police arrested Briley during a routine traffic stop, at which point she confessed to the crime. During her confession, Antoinette told investigators that at the time of the incident, she was 24 years old and alone in her grandfather's house when she gave birth to the twins in the bathtub. Panicked and overwhelmed as the newborns cried, she initially planned to take them to the hospital. She placed them in a duffel bag and got into her car, but along the way, she changed her mind. Instead of continuing to the hospital, she stopped, removed the babies from the bag, and discarded them in a garbage bin. After leaving the duffel bag behind, she returned home, watched television, and went to sleep. Investigators also discovered that Antoinette has a daughter, whose safety they ensured during the investigation. As of now, she does not have an attorney on record and is being held on a $15,000 bail. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing unsolved mysteries with me. If you found the video fascinating, Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Unsolved Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any mysteries you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video.